So you guys might be wondering who I am. I'm usually the guy behind the camera. My name is Nico, and I'm specifically doing this one because I just picked up a W204 C63 AMG. And to be honest, I know nothing about wheel specs on this car, but thankfully to this fitment guide, I now know what to talk about. Did you buy C-Class for your daily? You might have seen some in your marketplace feed and thought, wow, these are affordable. I've never owned a Benz before, plus the W204 generation is a pretty solid in the looks department. So you cop a deal from the first or second owner on what you think is a low mileage C350, 100K on the clock, but that's 100K German miles. Turns out it needs wheel bearings, timing chain tensioner, and a power window regulator. And you're just getting started. No problem, you know how to work on cars. Yes, problem. Not only do you have to sell a kidney to pay for parts, the thing takes all kinds of weird tools you don't own. When work does commence, you're constantly fighting in a maze of over-engineered systems, ultimately sending your new tools flying across the shop. So, since you're dumping your savings into this new daily, you might as well consider a new set of wheels, right? We put together this fitment guide to help you get properly fitting wheels and tires. They're not too hard to justify. Mercedes-Benz of this era are known to have problems with corroded alloy rims. What era are we talking about? In this post, we're looking at the W204 C-Class, which runs from 2008 to 2015. This info will work for all body styles and trims, even the C63 AMG, just like me, because I have one. Whether you have an inline 4 or a thumping AMG V8, it doesn't matter. As far as bolt pattern size, center bore, etc., the basic fitment info is all the same. There are some special considerations with the AMG, and that's why we dedicated a section for that towards the end. From factory, the non-AMG car comes with 16 or 17-inch diameter wheels. Our recommendations: skip to the AMG size. 18-inch wheels at least. 18 and 19-inch wheels are by far the most common sizes for this platform, and to be honest, they look the best. The offset of the stock wheels is pretty high, like ridiculous, but you don't need to go crazy here. Plus 35 to plus 50 offset gets you a flush or near flush fitment. For width, 8.5 is the go-to. If you want staggered setup, the back can fit 9 or even 9.5 without too much hassle. Tire specs will depend on if you go staggered or squared. 18s or 19s, 225/40 or 225/35 are pretty typical on square size setups. If you go staggered, you can consider a 245/40 or 255/35 rear. Fender rolling. There isn't much of a lip in the inner fenders to roll. If you do have to roll them, it can be a bit scary. Mercedes-Benz and other German cars have notoriously hard paint, like mine, that doesn't take well to rolling or pulling. It'll often chip before results are achieved. An alternative is to trim the small fender lip back and seal it with paint. You'll only gain about 1/4 of an inch of space max, so this is by no means a miracle to fix if you fucked up your fitment. The best advice is spec your wheels and tires right, and that's what will help you do. Formatic consideration: staggered versus square. You can run a staggered setup on a formatic as long as the difference in rolling diameter is less than 2% front to rear. This means that the overall diameter of your tires, regardless of the wheels, needs to measure less than 2.5%. For example, a 225/40 and a 255/35 tire combo would work. 225/40 with a 255/40 wouldn't work. If you want a plug and play fitment that doesn't involve fooling with the suspension, then this is for you. Here we have a 09 C350 on niche Vosso M204 wheels. This setup will work on a 4MATIC, although it's dead on the 2% tolerance. These cars don't have absurd wheel gap from the factory, so it's perfectly acceptable to stay at a stock height. This C300 Sport is on a full squared wheel tire setup. This is what a simple set of lowering springs can do on these cars. This one is on H&R Super Sports. The only downside is there's a slight rubbing in the rear on large bumps. Trimming or slight rolling would probably solve this. But is it worth chipping the paint? Probably not. As we can see from this example and the last, 19s fill out the fenders very well. Coilovers can take you even lower. This C230 is on a set of BC Racing coils. The front fitment is similar to what we've already seen, but the rear will need some rolling. Trimming as well. Also, the rear tires are stretched more than the previous. Even with these mods, there's still a bit of rubbing in the rear. So shop for some BC coils for the W204. We looked at stock suspension, springs, and coils. Now for some air suspension. This is a Mercedes fitment guide after all. Like fender lip fitment, then this one is for you. This estate wagon is fitted with work Gnosis that are pretty similar to what we've already seen. The high offset means that no fancy suspension work is needed. However, to go this low, the car needed material trimmed or removed from the inner fenders. This C250 is also on air, but has the wheels tucked into the fenders. This one is also on 18 inches, which might be the best size for airbagged cars. Paired with a thin tire, 18s let you sit the front lip on the ground. Unlike the last one, this one needed adjustable arms in the rear to tuck these 10-inch wide wheels. This spec is much more aggressive than the previous examples. The fenders may not need to be rolled because of the negative camber, but any obstacles in the inner fenders would need to be trimmed. C63 AMG Fitment. The W204 AMG is too different from the regular C-Class models. In fact, unless you have a Black Series, the rear fitment is exactly the same. If you do have a Black Series, you probably won't be looking at this guide since you already have baller factory wheels. The difference between AMG and non-AMG are the front. AMG models have both wider front fenders and wider track width. This allows for more aggressive fitment in the front. Grip rear tires are definitely needed with extra power. Interestingly, the rear isn't any wider, which kind of gives it a similar look to a drift car with wide strap kit, which is just basically the front wider than the rear. Also consider the massive 6-spot brakes in the front. AMG goes crazy with their brakes. Anything smaller than 18 is pretty much ruled out. Not that you wouldn't want to run 17s anyway. In addition, consider caliper to wheel face clearance to avoid needing spacers. Make sure your favorite wheels are known to clear the brakes. This 63 Coupe shows how wide you can go in the front. The typical tire width for non-AMG is 225 front. This car is running 245/35. It's possible to go a size or two larger, but might require some additional work. The rear is also wider than most of the non-AMG cars that we showed. In this case, 19x10 high offset with a 275/30 tire. You don't need something this wide with an inline-4 V6 model, but the M156 needs all the grip it can get. Owning a Benz can have the highest of highs or the lowest of lows. At times you're plagued with expensive repairs, but when things are going right, you get to look like the fucker in the town. A good looking set of wheels makes you look like even more of a baller. We looked at different wheel setups and suspension options. The factory wheel gap isn't terrible, so you could leave it stock and spend your money elsewhere. If you choose to lower it, your options include springs, coils, or air. Regardless of what suspension or wheels you choose, we'd love to see your car in our vehicle gallery. Share your specs to help others. Don't screw up your fitment and browse hundreds of cars in our vehicle gallery. Get inspired and get it right the first try. Post your own ride to help others. So I hope you like this video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully I didn't my first video on this YouTube. I'm Nico, and I'll catch you next time.